Emotions. Just want to quit tennis right now, but we'll see. We'll see in a few days. Hopefully I'll get back on track.
Do they have the rage rooms here in Paris?
They have everything in Paris.
You got everything in Paris, okay. Oh, I was feeling sad, actually. I was kind of like taking on her emotions, a lot of empathy.
Venus Williams has won many titles throughout her extraordinary career. She has been a Grand Slam champion, a trailblazer who helped change the sport, a successful businesswoman, and an athlete who has faced every kind of challenge and pressure imaginable. From the highest highs of championship victories to the toughest moments of disappointment, Venus has experienced it all. That is why, when she speaks about professionalism, sportsmanship, and how athletes should conduct themselves after a difficult loss, people tend to listen. Her opinions are not based on speculation or outside observation. They are shaped by decades of competing against the best players in the world and handling both success and adversity under the brightest spotlight tennis can offer. Recently, Venus found herself at the center of discussion after commenting on Aryna Sabalenka and the way top players respond to setbacks. Her remarks were not intended as praise. Instead, they reflected her belief that true champions are defined not only by how they perform when everything is going well, but also by how they react when things do not go according to plan. According to Venus, handling defeat with grace, accountability, and respect is just as important as celebrating victory. It is a lesson she learned throughout her own legendary career, and one she believes every elite athlete must eventually embrace. The timing of those comments has attracted even more attention because they come during a period in which Sabalenka has faced intense scrutiny. Over the last few months, expectations surrounding the world's top players have been higher than ever, and every performance, every interview, and every emotional reaction has been analyzed in detail. For Sabalenka, the spotlight has been especially intense, with fans and media closely examining not only her results on the court but also her responses after difficult defeats. The pressure that comes with being one of the biggest names in tennis can be overwhelming, and every public moment quickly becomes part of a larger conversation. What makes Venus' comments particularly interesting is how they connect to her decision to partner with Alex at Hamburg 2026. For Venus, success in tennis has never been solely about talent, rankings, or powerful shot-making. She has always emphasized character, resilience, professionalism, and the ability to learn from difficult moments. Those qualities are often what separate good players from truly great ones. By choosing to team up with Alex, Venus appears to be aligning herself with a player whose work ethic, attitude, and commitment to improvement have earned widespread respect throughout the tennis community. Alex's rise has been one of the most compelling stories in the sport. She has steadily built momentum through determination, disciplined preparation, and a willingness to compete fearlessly against higher-ranked opponents. Rather than becoming distracted by outside expectations, she has focused on developing her game and embracing every opportunity to grow. That mindset is something Venus has always admired in younger players. Throughout her career, Venus has repeatedly spoken about the importance of staying grounded, respecting the process, and maintaining perspective regardless of results. As a result, the connection between Venus' comments and her partnership with Alex has sparked plenty of discussion among tennis fans. Many see it as a reflection of the values Venus believes are essential for long-term success. Talent may open doors, but character, resilience, and professionalism are what sustain a career over many years. Whether or not Venus intended her remarks to send a broader message, they have certainly highlighted the standards she believes champions should uphold. And by choosing to share the court with Alex in Hamburg 2026, Venus may be demonstrating exactly the type of mentality and approach she wants to support as the next generation of players continues to shape the future of the sport. She entered Roland Garros as one of the most feared players on the WTA Tour, a two-time Grand Slam champion whose game is built on relentless aggression, overwhelming power, and an ability to take control of matches from the very first ball. Opponents knew that when Sabalenka was at her best, she could hit almost anyone off the court. Expectations were enormous, and many analysts viewed her as one of the leading contenders for the title. But the French Open has a way of testing even the strongest players in the game. It demands patience, adaptability, and emotional resilience, and sometimes it exposes weaknesses that are not always visible on faster surfaces. This time, Roland Garros exposed a vulnerability in Sabalenka's game and mindset that few expected to see. Her tournament ended earlier than many predicted, and the disappointment was immediate. However, it was not just the defeat itself that became the story. It was everything that followed. Instead of the composed and measured response fans have come to expect from a champion, the aftermath felt like a public struggle with frustration, exhaustion, and emotional fatigue. In her post-match comments, Sabalenka spoke openly about the weight of the pressure she had been carrying. She admitted that the loss had affected her deeply and suggested that, in that moment, she wanted to step away from tennis altogether. She questioned whether she still wanted to continue competing and described feeling overwhelmed by the expectations that come with being one of the sport's biggest stars. For many fans, those comments were surprising because they revealed a side of Sabalenka that is rarely seen. On the court, she projects confidence, intensity, and fearlessness. She plays with the attitude of someone who believes she can overpower any opponent standing across the net. Yet behind that fierce exterior was an athlete dealing with the emotional toll that comes from constantly competing under the microscope of global attention. Every loss is analyzed, every mistake is discussed, and every reaction becomes a headline. The pressure can be immense, especially for a player expected to challenge for every major title she enters. That is what made the conversation around her comments so significant. Some people viewed her honesty as refreshing and courageous, while others questioned whether such public frustration reflected the mindset expected from a player at the very top of the sport. The debate quickly spread throughout the tennis world, raising broader questions about mental toughness, accountability, and how elite athletes should respond to disappointment. It was exactly the type of situation that caught the attention of experienced champions like Venus Williams, who spent decades navigating similar pressures and understands better than most what it takes to survive the emotional highs and lows of professional tennis. For many fans and commentators, Sabalenka's post-Roland Garros comments quickly became a story of sympathy. People rushed to validate her feelings, arguing that her reaction was proof that even the strongest athletes in the world are still human beings dealing with enormous pressure. And to be fair, few would disagree with that point. Professional athletes are human. They experience disappointment, frustration, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion just like anyone else. But Venus Williams appeared to draw a very different distinction. Her perspective was not about denying those emotions existed. Instead, it was about how a champion chooses to handle them. Venus essentially argued that every player eventually faces moments like these. Every athlete who has spent years competing at the highest level has suffered painful losses, endured difficult stretches, and questioned themselves after disappointing results. In her view, those experiences are not unique to Sabalenka. They are part of the job description of being an elite competitor. The difference, according to Venus, is found in the response. How a player processes those emotions matters. How they carry themselves through adversity matters. Without directly attacking Sabalenka or questioning her character, Venus made it clear that she believed publicly amplifying those feelings was not the healthiest or most productive way to deal with disappointment. Drawing from her own decades of experience, Venus suggested that difficult moments are something athletes must learn to navigate internally while maintaining perspective. She pointed out that despite Sabalenka's frustrations, her season remained one that most professional players would envy. The victories, rankings, prize money, opportunities, and accomplishments were still there. A disappointing tournament or a rough stretch of form did not erase everything that had already been achieved. That is where Venus' criticism became especially pointed. Her argument was that by speaking as though a temporary setback overshadowed an entire season of success, Sabalenka risked diminishing her own accomplishments. In Venus' view, framing a difficult period as if it defined everything could cause athletes to lose sight of the bigger picture. Even when results are not perfect, there is value in recognizing what has already been accomplished and maintaining gratitude for opportunities many players spend their entire careers chasing. To Venus, perspective is one of the most important qualities a champion can possess, especially during moments of adversity. Then came the comment that instantly grabbed headlines. Venus suggested that if Sabalenka needed to release frustration, she should go find a rage room. The remark was delivered with the kind of blunt honesty that has always been part of Venus Williams' personality. It was direct, slightly humorous, and completely unapologetic. More importantly, it reflected her belief that there are healthier ways to process disappointment than turning every emotional reaction into a public spectacle. After more than 3 decades in professional tennis, Venus has developed her own methods for handling losses, setbacks, and frustration, and she clearly believes that emotional control is a skill every elite athlete must learn. Interestingly, this conversation soon connected to another topic that had tennis fans talking: Venus' decision to partner with Alex during the Hamburg tournament ahead of the Wimbledon season. When asked why she chose Alex, Venus gave an answer that many people interpreted as revealing. She explained that she was looking for a player who brings more than just power to the court. She wanted someone capable of changing the rhythm of a match, someone who understands strategy, court positioning, shot selection, and the subtle tactical adjustments that often decide high-level contests. Venus praised the importance of intelligent tennis, controlled tennis, and disciplined tennis rather than relying solely on raw force. Those comments naturally led many observers to draw comparisons between different playing styles on the tour. Alex has built her reputation on adaptability, creativity, and a willingness to construct points patiently rather than simply overpower opponents. She is capable of varying pace, using angles effectively, and making tactical adjustments throughout a match. Those qualities appear to align closely with the type of partner Venus wanted by her side. For a veteran who has spent decades studying the game at the highest level, choosing Alex seemed less about rankings and more about mindset, decision-making, and a shared appreciation for the strategic side of tennis. Whether intentional or not, Venus' comments created a fascinating contrast between emotional discipline off the court and tactical discipline on it, two qualities she clearly values as much today as she did during the peak of her legendary career. Venus made it clear that what she was looking for in a doubles partner went far beyond raw power. She was not searching for someone who could simply overwhelm opponents with force from the baseline. Instead, she wanted a player who understands the deeper layers of tennis, someone who reads the game, adapts to changing situations, and uses variety as a weapon. Venus spoke about the importance of being able to change pace, mix spins, create angles, and use tactical creativity to solve problems on the court. In her view, when players possess that kind of versatility, they are better equipped to handle difficult situations because they have multiple ways to win points rather than relying on a single strategy. Tennis becomes less about imposing power and more about finding solutions. What made those comments particularly interesting was the timing. Moments earlier, Venus had been discussing Aryna Sabalenka and her reaction to adversity. She had questioned the way the world number one publicly framed her struggles and emphasized the importance of maintaining perspective during difficult moments. Then, almost immediately afterward, she began describing Alex in terms that sounded like the complete opposite of the narrative surrounding Sabalenka. The contrast was difficult to ignore. On one side was a player known primarily for explosive power and emotional intensity. On the other was a player Venus admired for her adaptability, composure, and ability to think her way through challenges. Whether intentional or not, the comparison painted a clear picture of the qualities Venus values most. Venus had watched Alex closely. She had seen how Alex manages the rhythm of matches, how she constructs points patiently, and how she uses variation to create opportunities. Rather than forcing winners at every opportunity, Alex often builds points methodically, making opponents uncomfortable through movement, angles, and intelligent shot selection. That style requires discipline and trust in the process, especially when immediate results are not guaranteed. It also reflects a mindset that values problem-solving over panic, something Venus has always respected throughout her own career. What makes Venus' praise even more significant is the fact that Alex was not coming into that moment on the back of a major winning streak. She had experienced disappointments of her own and had recently suffered losses in singles competition. Venus was not complimenting Alex because everything was going perfectly. She was complimenting her because of the way she responded when things were not perfect. That distinction matters. Winning is easy to celebrate. Character is often revealed in defeat. According to the qualities Venus highlighted, Alex has shown an ability to absorb setbacks without allowing them to define her. She processes losses, studies them, learns from them, and then moves forward with a clear focus on improvement. That approach may not generate dramatic headlines, but it is one of the most valuable traits an athlete can possess. Long careers are not built solely on talent. They are built on resilience, emotional control, and the ability to maintain perspective through both success and failure. Alex appears to understand that reality. She accepts victories with gratitude, but she also handles defeats in a way that allows growth to take place. There is no public unraveling, No sense that one disappointing result erases months or years of progress. Instead, there is a steady commitment to getting better and preparing for the next opportunity. From Venus' perspective, those qualities are every bit as important as a powerful serve or a devastating forehand. They reflect maturity, professionalism, and a deep understanding of what it takes to survive in one of the most demanding sports in the world. When Venus spoke about Alex, she was not simply praising her tennis skills. She was praising a mentality. She was highlighting the value of patience, adaptability, and emotional discipline, traits that often separate players who enjoy brief success from those who build lasting careers. And when viewed alongside her comments about Sabalenka, the message became even clearer. Venus was drawing attention to the difference between being defined by setbacks and using setbacks as fuel for growth. In her eyes, Alex represents the latter, a player who continues moving forward regardless of whether the most recent result was a victory or a defeat. For critics of Sabalenka, the concerns did not begin at Roland Garros. They point to a pattern that has emerged over several high-profile defeats, moments in which her reactions have often become almost as significant as the matches themselves. After her loss to Coco Gauff at the US Open, for example, much of the conversation shifted away from the tennis and toward her demeanor afterward. Observers noted that Sabalenka appeared visibly frustrated, emotionally withdrawn, and at times uncomfortable with questions surrounding the result.